Hi, this is Regina Y. Favors with Pre-Singles Counseling. This is part of my Pre-Singles Counseling Coaching Curriculum, where I design lessons and case studies based in the psychology literature on different topics. This Pre-Singles Counseling is targeted to three types of individuals. The first individual is a person who is interested in becoming single. That means that person is not necessarily interested in dating or entering the marriage market. The second individual is a single individual who is interested in entering the dating market. And then the last individual is a single dating individual who is interested in marriage. So take some time to listen to this lesson and or case study. Please leave a comment and I will reply. In addition, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit the notification bell if you are interested in further topics. This is Pre-Singles Counseling, a Pre-Singles Counseling Coaching Curriculum. Thank you for visiting the channel. This lesson is subject to fair use, where I will comment, criticize, offer research, as well as teach and provide scholarship. By the end of this lesson, students will be able to do the following: define mate retention, discuss the difference between benefit provisioning and cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors, define mate value, explain the connection between mate retention and mate value. So you will often see a discussion in multiple audios about mate retention behaviors as well as mate value. So keep that in mind as you go through this series. Single women should be knowledgeable about mate retention behaviors, as these are typically used within the dating markets, both sex and marriage. Men use mate retention behaviors to sustain the relationship or abandon it based on a single woman's mate value, high or low. They may provide gifts and compliment a woman's appearance, as in benefit provisioning. They may use sexual jealousy or insults, as in cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors. Single women must understand how men allocate their efforts towards mate retention. What is pre-singles counseling? So pre-singles counseling is based in a decision to enter or exit singleness. Pre-singles is the time period between single and contemplation of dating. There is a difference between being a single individual and being a single individual who has entered the dating market, which includes the sex market. Pre-singles counseling reflects the processes by which an individual researches, learns, and plans to navigate life either as a single, a dating single, or a single interested in marriage. So here are some pre-discussion questions I'd like you to think about as you go through this audio. Has a previous partner and their efforts ever affected your self-esteem? Have you had previous experiences with a partner monopolizing all your time and limiting access to social resources such as family and friends? Has a previous partner abandoned a relationship with you? And do you perceive yourself as having higher mate value? So anytime I talk about mate value or any sort of partner dynamics, I always bring in mate retention behaviors, mate replaceability, mate value, mate preference, to give you a very good understanding of what it means to understand, the dating market, possibly the marriage market. The first question is something that I really want you to think about, especially with past partners. Has a previous partner and their efforts ever affected your self-esteem? So the reason why I posed that question, because it comes from my own past experience. My first true encounter as an adult with a prospective partner is the same encounter that I had that damaged my self-esteem. You know, it's funny how you don't think you are ugly until someone tells you you are ugly, right? For all you know, you are just pretty and pretty as pie, and no one can tell you anything. And I'm not saying I'm ugly, and I don't really like calling people ugly. But there was something in that relationship that affected my self-esteem to the point that I started to really date down almost to people who were emotionally and physically abusive. The guy was interested in someone else I didn't know about at the time, and I found out later. He was interested in somebody else, and he was basically using me to make her jealous. And so although I thought we were in relationship and we were going somewhere, we were never going anywhere. And something about that relationship and something about his attitude towards me affected how I saw myself. It was like, you know, you see yourself in the mirror, and the mirror is clean and it's clear, and you can see, you know, good parts, some bad parts, some imperfections, things like that. But then if you throw water on the mirror, you look distorted. Your face looks distorted, and it should prompt you to go get a towel and clean the mirror again. But the way that my relationship went with him, uh, it affected my ability to go get the towel to clean the mirror again. It took a while to get out of that thinking, to get out of that, the way that he saw me, because when when you are when you're graduating from high school, because I met him maybe like some months out of high school. I'd say maybe a year out of high school. You come out, you graduate in a vulnerable state because you are in transition. And so if you don't plan your life well those 2 years prior to graduating from high school, you'll end up taking anything. That's why I push that in my class with my students, because that's an area where I failed. And so therefore I try to make sure that students understand that point, because if you don't have something planned, either if you were not able to get into the university but you go to junior college or something like that, or you have a job that's part-time or full-time, right? You have something with which you can build and sustain your self-esteem. If not, someone is going to come along and insert their thinking about you, and it's never in a positive light. If they don't have the right kind of identity or self-esteem for themselves, they're only going to project how they think about themselves onto you. So that's a question that I want you to think about, in terms of how someone can affect your self-esteem. So let's look at mate value, perception, defection, and allocation. So mate value is defined as the overall desirability of someone to a pool of potential mates. So here it is, you have a lot of women in one place, and as soon as you see those women, men begin to rank. And it's almost like they are doing a visual image of them, uh, separating nines and tens into one pile, and then sevens and eights into another pile, and then fives and six into yet another pile, and then everybody else into the other pile, right? So they've already attached a mate value. Now, all of those women, all of those women in that whole pile, in that one big pile, could believe they are high value, very desirable, right? But social perception dictates maybe a different type of view of them. So desirability reflects one's own mate value. So do you believe you are desirable? Again, it depends also on how you are perceived as desirable. A lot of YouTube videos are now on women having a masculine frame, and that men don't want women who are more masculine than them, and that there's this push from both men and women YouTubers that women need to adopt a more feminine strategy, that if you want to get married, you need to be a lot more feminine. Now, these same men still want you to work, right? That's never going to change. But if you're so independent to the point that you just can't be in a relationship with someone, let alone married, it, in terms of social perception, it decreases your desirability. You might think you are highly desirable because you have XYZ resources. But if you're not necessarily high value to them, if you don't have a higher mate value status, your desirability really is nothing to the men who perceive you as more masculine, right? Mate value is reflected in the comparison between a person's characteristics and the characteristics of potential opposite sex relationship alternatives. So again, the men who are viewing you are often the ones who rank you, who set you within a certain rank. That's why you will hear men oftentimes talk about a woman related to the car they drive. So there's a woman who's a Pinto, there's a woman who's a Honda, there's a woman who's a Ford, there's a woman who is a BMW, a Mercedes, a Bentley, right? Because they value cars, right? They value how the car looks and runs, a Buick, right? And so not only do they rank using a scale of 1 to 10, but they rank based upon cars. So they always say in passing and in joking that, oh, I can ride that Honda like it's nothing, you know, I can ride that Ford or whatever. But a Buick is quite different from a Ford or Honda, and then a BMW or Mercedes is quite different from a Buick, and then yet the Bentley is definitely different from all the cars, right? And so your mate value is attached based upon how they rank you, and also how that is reflected in examples of what mate value is to them. One's own mate value indicates attractiveness as a potential mate on the mating market. Mate value predicts mate retention. So as long as your mate value is high, if the husband married you as a high mate value, then it is likely that the husband will retain you, right? Same goes with a woman. As long as she married that man and he was always, I mean, he remains rich, she will not cultivate a backup mate and will retain him as a mate. But that mate value does predict mate retention. So perception of attractive women. So men mated to younger, more attractive women perform more mate retention behaviors than do men mated to older, less attractive women. So one thing about attractive women, whether they are white, black, Asian, it doesn't matter. They know how to use their attractiveness as currency. But again, there are levels of attractiveness. The white woman, blonde, blue-eyed, skinny, is usually considered the global standard of beauty, right? So if there is a white woman standing among any ethnicity of women, the men are socialized to pick her first. She is automatically assumed to be higher mate status because of her skin tone, because she is white. And she knows how to use her whiteness as social currency. So this is talking about younger, more attractive women, but you still have to make a distinction between young as well as the default global standard. So then after that, if you don't have that global beauty standard among all the women in that pile, then who is the most attractive? I mean, who is younger, and then who is the most attractive, right? And again, they look at attractiveness likely first before they even look at youth. And so it's usually the next level, whoever the next level, and they base it upon skin tone. So as long as the skin tone is light, whether it's from an Asian, a Latino, or even a black woman, they will go for that person first. So it's like white to light, and then everyone else is basically grouped in a different type of ranking. Women also report on their mate value as well as their partner's mate value. Women who perceive themselves as higher mate value as well as their partners often report their partners using more benefit provisioning and less cost-inflicting behaviors. So when a man is mated to a higher status mate, it is unlikely that he is going to insult or use any sort of sexual jealousy or anything like that, because he wants to retain that mate. That mate makes him look good. Now, he can be physically attractive himself, but it's something about that higher status mate in a woman, that higher mate value in a woman, that sort of makes him retain his status and further elevate him, to the next level status. And it does depend on what the mate value is for that woman. In a previous audio, I talked about the daughter of an NFL owner, and she would automatically have a higher mate value. One, because she's white, and two, because she is, connected to an NFL owner, her father. And then three, because her access to, financial resources. And then four, because her access to network. So even if he doesn't want to do business with the father has access to a network of other owners and other organizations that would be a lot beneficial to him. So he's going to do all that he can to make sure he does not lose in being a husband to his wife, his higher mate value wife. Both men of higher and lower mate value report differences on mate retention behaviors. So defection. Men have a stake in ensuring that their partners do not defect from the relationship due to infidelity. They will allocate effort to mate retention. So this means that they look up to the higher mate value woman, so they will be less likely to commit infidelity. And if they did commit infidelity, they would be shepherded back into the fold through some sort of consequence or, punishment or something like that. And understanding that they could lose everything would likely influence their decision to continue allocating efforts to mate retention. So they'll go to counseling. They'll say, I'm sorry, but they'll go to counseling. They'll do anything that they can to let the woman know, the wife of higher mate value know that I'm here to stay and I'm not going to do this thing anymore. I'm not going to go and cheat with somebody, and I'm going to work on my drinking. Mate retention is based on a partner's mate value, which is further based on the potential of one partner defecting from the relationship. So if that male partner husband does not continue to improve, then he knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that the wife definitely has options, and she can leave anytime. She is so connected and embedded within the network of resources and influences that he divorcing her is not going to hurt him as much as it's going to hurt him. It's not going to hurt her as much as it's going to hurt him. A person's mate value may fall under higher mate value or lower mate value. We've already established that. Men often view a woman's mate value in terms of youthfulness and attractiveness. We've established that as well. Men ultimately allocate mate retention efforts based upon their own mate value. So they know. So with the husband, unless he is the son of an NFL player, he is really considered lower mate value to his higher mate value wife. Even if he has a big name business, a big brand or something like that, the NFL owner daughter is still a higher mate value. So he's still going to have to walk the walk. He's still going to have to play the game. He's still going to have to put on that actor's face to make sure that he continues to have access to her, to her father, and to all of their resources. So he will continue to allocate retention efforts. He's not going to do a lot of cost-inflicting mate retention. He's going to play his part. So here is a reflection opportunity, assessing allocation. Given this discussion, have you ever allocated any effort to retain a romantic partner based on your perception of their mate value? What was the partner's mate value? What did you do? What was the strategy? Did it work? Would you allocate one or more of your efforts again to retain that romantic partner, right? So, if you think about the husband, then he's going to commit to, or he's going to allocate his efforts to go to counseling to retain that wife based upon her mate value, because her mate value is high. So the counseling, what he did was he went to counseling, and the strategy was counseling, working on himself, keeping a journal, things like that. And if he's still in their relationship, if she accepted him back, then it worked. Now, would he do it again? The problem with that is if you take somebody back, they might do it again. And so then allocation of effort might not work a second time or a third time if you are just committed to a lifestyle of cheating. So that's something that I want you to think about when you are allocating efforts to retain that romantic partner. How many times have you taken somebody back for cheating? When I took somebody back for cheating, when I initially took him back, I thought he was struggling. So I allocated efforts to retain that partner because I thought he was struggling. Let's talk about it. Let's pray about it. Maybe write, let's exercise. Let's do all different types of things to try to retain our relationship, because I think it's worth it. But once I realized that he was not struggling, but he was actually committing to a lifestyle of cheating, that was his attitude, then no matter what he did going forward, however many times he did that going forward, it was not going to work, because he had already he fooled me into believing that he was changing, but he didn't have a heart of change. So therefore, any efforts to retain me were not going to work. So therefore, I had to make the decision to exit him out of my life. So I had to go through a whole process of exiting him out of my life. So then my efforts, allocating efforts, I shifted my allocation of efforts to now exiting versus retaining. And it took a process, because if you kick somebody out right when they do something, you always take them back because because that decision was based on emotions. But when you go through a process, and the process was basically, I'm going to let you save money. I'm not going to tell you why I'm letting you save money. I'm just going to say it's you saving money for the house. I know you're not going to contribute in my mind because you don't contribute now. But when you kick him out and he has money or she has money, you don't feel bad. See, when you kick somebody out and they don't have a job and they don't have any money, you feel bad, and then you end up taking them back. I was trying to make sure that once I finally made that decision, that I was not going to take him back. So all of my efforts, I shifted all of my efforts from retaining him as a partner, as a romantic partner, to now exiting him out of my life, out of my finances, my heart, my mind, my body. I allocated all of my efforts to exiting him. So that's the example I want you to think about as you think about these questions. So mate retention, let's get into types of mate retention behaviors. I go into fuller detail with this audio versus other audios. So there are two types of mate retention behaviors. Again, that's cost-inflicting and then benefit provisioning. So these are behaviors that men and women inflict on their partners to keep them from leaving the relationship. And then for benefit provisioning, these are behaviors that men largely use to increase relationship satisfaction. So cost-inflicting, a man will use the following types of cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors to prevent infidelity and or partner defection. And remember, defection or to defect means to abandon. So they will limit a partner's social contacts and access to social support system. So whereas you were excited to introduce your partner to your family and you always went over there for dinners or something like that, and then when he messed up, you told your mom and your dad or your brother or your sister, and then you took him back, right, to retain a relationship. When he's trying to keep the relationship because there's a threat of you kicking him out or letting him go, he's going to now limit your social contacts. And men do this more than women. I really haven't seen a woman limit a man's social contacts unless she is jealous of the child that he had with an ex, and she's trying to limit the contact between the child and him, or the child, him and the mother. But other than that, most women, I don't really see them as limiting, social contacts. Now, it could be a manipulative woman, a Jezebel spirit, right? Here it is. It's a good man and he loves his family, and somehow she's trying to get in the middle of them. That it's really at an extreme that happens. Usually the family tends to not accept the woman initially. It takes some time to accept her, especially the mother. So I feel like that's more of a male strategy, especially when he is an abusive male, that he's trying to limit social contact with the social support system. Monopolizing the partner's time. So a male will use cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors when he wants to monopolize the partner's time. And a lot of times, again, it has a lot to do with abuse, emotional abuse, sometimes physical abuse. Contributing to self-esteem and self-worth issues. So he might attack the way she dressed, the fact that she wears weave or a wig, the fact that she's getting fat even though she's pregnant. Maybe she's not satisfying him in the bedroom enough, right? But he's attacking the self-esteem because he's trying to keep it. Because the more you punch at somebody, and you would think that the person will step away and not take the punches, or at least not return to someone who's punching them. But abusers groom you. They groom you for the process of taking the hits and taking them back. And so they start with your self-esteem. You need to, look better, put on some perfume or something like that. I had an ex. I didn't wear perfume because it messed with my allergies, and I didn't know that I had allergies at that time, but my nose would flare up, my eyes would water, itch, things like that. And I never knew that I was allergic. And so I didn't really wear perfume. But I also grew up in the house with a single mother, and single mothers tend to be kind of masculine because they have to be both mother and father, to their kids and work and be independent and everything. So when this happens, single mothers do not always sort of teach their girls how to be feminine, because the girls are usually workhorses and mules. They are the ones who wash all the dishes, keep up with the kids, while the single mother is working. So there's no time to really be a girl, right? Or to be a woman, or to be feminine. So by the time I met him, I didn't wear perfume because it gave me headaches, and I didn't know why I was having headaches, so I just stopped wearing perfume. But one day he called attention to the fact that I didn't wear perfume. And it was just little things that he would mess with my self-esteem and self-worth issues. And I hadn't even really established a self-worth. I was, I had come out of a, toxic family environment. And so self-esteem was not the goal. Building self-esteem in the house was not the goal. My mother was always very tortured, in a way. She was also just stressed, having to take care of kids and work and without a partner, a husband or whatever. So he would work on my self-esteem, and then I started wearing perfume, and then he would attack other areas, and then I started giving in to his whims, and then one minute we're not in a relationship, and then another minute we are in a relationship, and then he's calling girls in front of me, then he's putting somebody else in the front seat of the car. It was just a number of things, but he was grooming me and I didn't know. But it's funny that they will use cost-inflicting behaviors, but they really to retain you, but they really don't really want to retain you. It's like they're trying to push you away but keep you all at the same. It's just the strangest thing. Increasing the likelihood of negative health consequences. So dealing with him just gave me a headache. It increased whatever anxiety I had prior to meeting him and engaging him. It just increased it. I never felt peace in that situation. If a mate is using cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors, I don't care what kind of financial resources that mate has. It never works. You never have peace. It is better to get out of that relationship, because a person does not want to be in a relationship with you, because anything you want to keep, you're not going to continually push back. Using partner directed insults. So some men are very bold in how they talk to you. They might even slip and call you the B word, but insults are, it just depends on what they are saying to you. And then using manipulation, intimidation, and possessiveness. I think on some level, a man who is a provider type should be a little possessive. I mean, especially if you're giving the woman a title, right, and you want to marry her, but not to the point that you are grabbing her arm and throwing her across the room and putting your finger in her face like she's a child or something like that. I don't think that type of possessive, but you should care about the woman that you are with, and that you are only with her and you're not entertaining other partners. So then for benefit provisioning behaviors based on mate value, a man will use the following types of benefit provisioning mate retention behaviors to prevent partner infidelity and or defection. So complimenting the partner's appearance. Usually if you're complimenting somebody else's appearance, you feel good about yourself. You don't have a distorted vision about yourself. You're not insecure. You're not jealous of the partner. You're not trying to affect the partner's self-esteem. You feel you look good, so you want to make sure the partner that you have looks good, and you wouldn't have chosen her if she didn't look good. So complimenting the partner's appearance is very important. I have seen cases where a partner will not compliment his wife's appearance, but will compliment the waitress appearance, right? Or will compliment somebody else's appearance. I mean, I think that's important. I don't think you need to be all up in somebody's face, oh, you look good or whatever. But you do care about your partner, so her appearance matters, and so it should also matter to you. Buying the partner expensive gifts to retain affection. So that is something that is kind of like a check on a relationship, There's a word I'm thinking, but I can't think of it right now. It's on the tip of my tongue. But basically, taking inventory of the relationship and knowing when to do certain things that will keep the partner. I mean, if you never buy anybody anything, right? Or if you never do anything for your partner, and that's part of the relationship, it will affect how somebody sees you, as well as affect how they will continue to stay in a relationship. Providing more resources. So women who marry high value male partners will expect that male partner to increase in financial resources. Providing resources also could be just the baseline, food, shelter, clothing, right? security, stability, anything like that that will sort of keep the partner in the relationship. And then increasing the partner's self-esteem, which is all important, because if you increase the partner's self-esteem, it also further increases your self-esteem. And so you are more likely to stay in the relationship because you both feel good about your participation in a relationship, your engagement in a relationship, your attitude towards a relationship. There's nothing worse than driving around the neighborhood and not wanting to come home, not wanting to hit the house. I mean, there are times you want to stay away from the house. You want air because, being married or being in a relationship, it takes a lot out of you. It takes everything. But it shouldn't feel like that. It shouldn't be you looking at your phone and seeing your wife call or your husband call and saying, man, I don't feel like talking to her. You do that to other friends or something like that. And sometimes you may not have the right attitude to talk to somebody. You could be stressed at your job. I'm not talking about that. But you shouldn't be annoyed. You shouldn't be bothered when your partner calls. Now that is something, because if you feel bothered and annoyed and you're kind of having contempt for it, that probably is not the relationship for you, or you're dealing with issues that you need to address before you come back to the relationship. So here is a reflection opportunity in assessing behavior. So given the distinctions between benefit provisioning and cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors, consider the following. Has a previous romantic partner used gifts, compliments, and or any effort to retain you as a romantic partner? Has a previous romantic partner used sexual jealousy, insults, and or any effort to retain you as a romantic partner? So these are things you want to think about, because it gives you an opportunity to assess your relationship, because a lot of times we get mad and leave relationships before we really assess them. We get mad, we leave the house, we slam the doors. I'm leaving, I'm breaking up with this relationship. And then you get off to yourself a few days later and you miss them. Or you get out to yourself a few years later and you miss them, because the fight that you were having was not something that was worthy of disengaging or divesting from the relationship, abandoning it completely. That if you do one of these mid-check relationship opportunities, you might find that your partner do much more for you and to you than you realize. And you also might find out that your partner does more and to you and for you than you do for your own partner. And that should be humbling. So let's look at high, low mate value. So men, women, and access to resources. So men of lower mate value in general, men who have less access to resources, perform cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors. Men of lower mate value may resort to the use of cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors, such as those that rely on manipulation, intimidation, and possessiveness. So if you are a lower mate value male, it's automatic that you're going to feel inferior, or if inferior is too hard of a word, you're going to have less self-esteem or less confidence. And it depends on what you are doing. You don't necessarily have to be a celebrity, right, to have high value status. But if you are a person who, say for instance, I've seen celebrity women marry just ordinary men. They are not the same level as other celebrity men. And then to make them useful, they will give them a job, and the job could be like a manager of them, right? But they're still lower mate value, so they're still going to operate from a thinking of being like inferior to their partner. So they're not going to always make the best decisions. They're going to bind you to contracts that are really not good contracts, right? Because you might give them power of attorney. And whoever you date needs to have not only a worldview, but if they're going to operate in any sort of business context, they need to have a business mindset. If you want somebody to manage you and that person is your husband, he needs to have some business training, business school, a successful business, some sort of record of him engaging business, not just a person who's had a job and who was a supervisor, even though that might actually be important, because at least with supervising, manager and then director and of course vice president, at least with supervising, you are exposed to budgets, you are supervising, and then of course you are exposed to scheduling. So that gives you some sort of understanding about how business works when you're dealing with staff and employees and things like that. But if you have somebody who has never done that and all they have done is clocked in on a job, a person is not going to work immediately like a manager. So I really believe that it's better that you marry somebody high value. A high value man could date down and marry a lower value woman. Lower value does not necessarily mean ugly or anything like that, but she may not be higher value in terms of, say, like Prince Harry. Meghan Markle was not a princess of another country or a duchess of another country, right? She was an American. She was what we might call common folk. Well, Prince Harry can get away with that. You know, he had other alternative mates. They were not necessarily princesses, princesses, but they came from family of wealth. Well, he chose Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle, however, her only option is to date up if she wants access to resources, and he's less likely to perform cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors because he loves her. He's less likely to manipulate, intimidate, be possessive in terms of a negative fashion. But he's not lower mate value in any sense of the word. Phrase. Using cost-inflicting behaviors may be risky, so men of lower mate value often risk losing a partner to an alternative relationship, one who is more attractive. So, let me look at the female aspect of it for a minute. So if Meghan Markle did anything that would decrease Prince Harry's mate value, even though he's off the mating market, there's a greater risk that she will lose him over him losing her, right? If you go back to the NFL owner's daughter, by contrast, her husband would be lower mate value unless he owned a team somewhere, right? An NFL team. So then it will be risky for him to use manipulation, knowing that she is guarded by her father. There's a father in the home. See, what happened with most women that you see today, the father has left the home, and that's across the race, ethnic, cultural spectrum, that a lot of fathers are not in the home. And men usually could not take out a daughter, boys or whatever could not take out a daughter without going through the father. So when a man covers their daughter, he's not necessarily doing it in the same way that he would cover his wife, but there is inherent protections in the father covering the daughter. So knowing that the father is in the daughter's life and they are very close in that way, her husband would be less likely to use the types of behaviors, cost-inflicting behaviors, that he might use with a lower value female, right? A man partner to a woman of higher mate value may have difficulty replacing his valuable partner, and therefore may be less willing to risk losing her by engaging in high-risk, cost-inflicting mate retention behavior. So it will be difficult for him to replace a woman who is the owner of half owner, part owner of an NFL team, unless she is a part owner of another type of company, right? That that is part of a billion-dollar industry. So it would be stupid of him to base any of his mate retention efforts on physical attractiveness alone. So his wife might not be Miss USA, Miss America, but she comes with a greater network of resources that it would be really stupid for him to not retain the relationship, because he would lose a lot more than she would. Men of higher mate value. So in general, men who have more access to resources perform benefit provisioning mate retention behaviors. Given the choice between allocating substantial resources to benefit provisioning or to cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors, men of high mate value might opt for the lower risk benefit provisioning behaviors, in part because they have the resources to perform them. So they're not going to, a man in any relationship is going to be a man, whether he's higher mate value or lower mate value. So in some cases, men might restrict a wife from doing certain things, but he's not going to stop the gifts, the compliments, the building of her self-esteem or something like that. He's not going to do that. He might institute a financial boundary. He might still give her access to the accounts, but there might be, say, like a limit. And for them at certain levels, their limits might be $35,000 a month or something like that, right? But it's not like she can't go out and go get the things that she wants on a normal. So the lower risk rate might be just, limits, but she still has access to the resources, and she still has access to everything that the higher mate value provides within that environment. Using low risk benefit provisioning mate retention behaviors is not risky because this mate retention behavior makes it unlikely that the partner will be replaced. So if he's using more benefit provisioning, he's just pouring more sweetness, onto the relationship because he admires her, he loves her, he wants to retain her. It's just a number of things that he would do, knowing that he still has options because he is higher mate value, but that doesn't really matter. He still wants to be with her, love her. So it is unlikely that he's going to replace her. Women of higher value, so women who perceive themselves as higher mate value or their partners report more benefit provisioning than cost inflicting. So not only does, it's almost like comparing notes. So the man says, I'm a higher mate value man, right? And I make sure that my wife has what she needs. Then the woman reports, oh yeah, I am married to a high value man, and I am a high value woman myself, but my man makes sure that he gives me everything I need. It's like comparing notes. So there is no discrepancy, no value discrepancy, no mate value discrepancy between them. They both believe what they believe and what they are experiencing. And he would likely say also that my wife makes sure I have everything I need. Men mated to women of higher mate value used more cost-inflicting behaviors. Men mated to women of lower mate value used cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors. And that's usually out of a fear that when he uses cost-inflicting with the lower mate value, it's much more severe because he doesn't want that person, but he will stay with that person until the right person comes along. But when he uses cost-inflicting behaviors with the higher mate value woman, that's also out of fear. It might not be as severe as what he does with the lower mate, but he might, because of his insecurity and lack of confidence, he might throw maybe like a little bit of a issue with the self-esteem. He might If you remember the Perfect Murder film with Michael Douglas and Gwyneth Paltrow, and when they were going to some benefit, some artistic benefit or something like that, she had pulled out a dress that she wanted to wear, right? And they were both higher make value partners. She was more so because she was connected to a legacy and inheritance, and he had a business, um, investment business, but we found out later that he was, bleeding money. And she picked out a dress that she wanted to wear, that she felt very comfortable in wearing. But he came into the closet and picked out a dress that he thought that would be a lot better for her to wear. That's what cost inflicting looks like at that level. It's not insults, it's not calling the person out of their name, it's not hitting or anything like that. Is being more aggressive with your preferences over what the other person prefers. So she went on ahead and put the dress on, and she played her role, whatever that role is, as a wife, and went to the benefit. And we found out later that she was cheating on her husband and everything. And so therefore he was trying to kill her because he understood that he couldn't retain the relationship. And he was trying to get her boyfriend to kill her, and that didn't happen. So that's a very good movie. I hope you get a chance to watch that. But the cost inflicting at certain levels is very different than what you will see at the lower levels. With the men made it to women of lower mate value, he might actually hit her. He might throw her across the room and then bring flowers. He might semi-rape her. It's a number of things to keep her in the relationship. So here is a reflection opportunity. I want to bring forth that quote that I just referenced. So assessing mate value, a man partner to a woman of higher mate value may have difficulty replacing his valuable partner, and therefore may be less willing to risk losing her by engaging in high risk cost inflicting mate retention behaviors. Do you believe you are a woman of high mate value? Would your partner risk losing you if he used cost inflicting behaviors? And yes, just depend. If you feel like you are high mate value, it depends on the partner that you've chosen. But then if your partner is low mate value, it is much more likely that he will use cost inflicting behaviors, because once you expose someone to a certain level, especially when it comes to financial, they don't want to leave that, especially when you expose them to money, money at a very high level. They don't want to lose that, even if they don't have a firm understanding of what level they are really on. They just see a whole bunch of rich people in $5,000 suits or something like that with Bentleys. They know that is something that is possible for them, and they're going to do all that they can to make sure they don't lose it. So they might be less likely to do anything, because in the Perfect Murder, we didn't see the husband cheating on the wife. We saw the wife cheating on him. So he considered her high value, even if he was kind of tough in a way that he dealt with her or engaged her. He still didn't cheat on her. Never in that movie did we ever see him cheating on her with somebody else. And so she had exposed him to such a high level of wealth, and realizing the threat of losing all of that contributed to him deciding that I'm just going to kill her altogether, because as a husband he would gain all of her assets, anything that was not part of a prenup. And so and he was after the money, but he was in relationship with her for a while. So that's something that I want you to think about in terms of reflection, this reflection opportunity. So as we conclude, let's look at infidelity prevention. Mate retention is based upon mate value. Men who perceive themselves of higher mate value do not need to perform cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors because they simply have the resources. Basically, they don't need to tell a woman off or act stupid because both men and the women of higher mate value understand that he can leave. If you decide you want to leave, he can leave, right? So he has all of the resources, so it would be less, but it wouldn't make any sense for him to waste his time with a cost-inflicting mate retention behavior because he understands his mate value and he understands what kind of value he brings to the table, and it is incumbent upon the woman to realize that and to stay. Men who perceive themselves of lower mate value will often use cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors on who they perceive as lower mate value women, but not on higher mate value women. Like I said, they still might use it on higher mate value women, but it just depends on what they're trying to do. However, they would definitely use it on lower mate value women if they don't want that woman, or if they are considering a prospective partner, or cultivating a backup mate, or interested in replacing that lower mate value woman. Use of mate retention behaviors arguably prevents partner infidelity and or partner defection. So if if a man is giving you everything you want and you think he's still a good man as well, it's unlikely that you will choose another partner, right? Commit infidelity. But you could marry someone who's rich and still not like him and still cheat on them. And they can be higher mate value, but something about the situation, and it's something really about you, not necessarily the person, that you might commit infidelity. Now, you haven't left the relationship because you understand that the partner has resources, and people usually stay just for the resources. So use of mate retention behaviors arguably prevents partner infidelity and or partner defection. It just depends. It really depends on the partner. It depends on how the person sees himself or herself, the relationship. Because I've seen partners live in a mansion, have everything that they want at their disposal, maids, housekeepers, all that kind of stuff, and they're still cheating on their partner. So then it wasn't the financial resources that the partner had. It was something else that's missing in you. And so that's something you want to think about. So let's get into a YouTube discussion on mate retention strategies. So when you are thinking about divesting from a relationship or disinvesting from the relationship, what were some of the strategies you have used in the past and maybe in the present to prevent your partner from infidelity or defection, which means that to divest from the relationship? So cost-inflicting or benefit provisioning, would you use those same strategies today? Add your comments after this video. You can respond to one or both questions. So to disinvest is predicated on how much time you have put into the relationship and whether it is worth it to stay or leave. Because if you're dealing with a cheating partner and the partner just won't stop cheating, it's time to leave. Because you're never going to have peace. The partner is going to bring external influences, especially STDs. You might run into an issue with, say, that example from Amy Fisher and Mary Budufuko. You might run into an issue with some crazy woman deciding that she wants to come to your house and shoot you. And it's better to go on ahead and leave and get whatever you can get out of the relationship so that you are safe. So when you are thinking about no longer investing in a relationship, you need to assess what you have been doing, cost-inflicting, benefit provisioning, assess your own contribution, assess the viability of the relationship, assess whether it is worth it to stay? Can you see yourself in a relationship long term? And I mean, if you're in a marriage, to death do you part, right? Those are certain questions that you want to think about. And if you are a single woman, you can assess a past relationship to determine what you used to put up with and what you won't put up with today, especially anyone who is affecting your self-esteem. That's very important, because you cannot make the best decisions when your vision is distorted. You will continue to pick someone who keeps throwing water on your mirror, and it will be hard for you to reason that the solution is to go get the towel to clean the mirror, and so in order to get the water off the mirror. So it's investing in the relationship. It really is something that you need to consider, whether every time you water, something is growing. I mean, sure, weeds will grow with the flowers, but if there is willingness from both parties to uproot the weeds, then there is a higher probability that the ground will continue to grow and produce flowers. Pulling up the weeds is that constant management of the relationship. Are you both willing to manage in that way? But if the garden is just overflowing with weeds, there may not be really a good strategy to continue in the relationship. So that's something that you really want to think about when you think about investing. All right, so hopefully you were able to gain insight from this video discussion. Please like, subscribe, and visit. So please like the video, hit the notification bell for more discussions. I am re-uploading all of my audios, so I needed to make some changes to them. You can visit my website for more content at reginayfavors.com. If you want to send me an email, you can send an email, reginayfavors@yahoo.com. Please also purchase the book. It's going to come out in spring 2021. So I had to make changes to my book to update it, and I also updated the title. So the original title was Bait, Hook, and Switch: Confessions of a Rebound Girl, and I have updated the title to Toxic Encounters: Why People Pursue Rebound Relationships. So right now I'm still basically editing it, and I want to make it available in spring 2021. So thank you very much for visiting my channel, and I am Regina Y. Favors. Have a great day.